Alright, hey there YouTubers. Today we are going to be changing the fluid and gasket on my differential for this 2004 base model V6 Mustang. So one of the first things that you're going to want to do for this is get the rear end of the car up. I've done this with ramps, but you can just jack it up and put it on stands. On this specific vehicle, make sure that you have something down here blocking the front wheels, because this is a rear-wheel drive car, so make sure it's well held and it's not going to roll anywhere, since your e-brake's not going to hold it if it's on jack stands like that. But this is specifically for this vehicle, but the procedure will be pretty much the same for any kind of differential gasket change and fluid change that you do. It should work for most vehicles. Just follow along and see if it applies to you. Okay guys, so right here is our differential case housing. Basically, go to your tire, run through the axle on each end, and it's in the middle for the rear drive vehicles. That's just the basic idea of it if you're not sure where it actually is. But you can see it's just got a couple bolts holding on this case. And down here, I kind of cleaned it up a bit. I had a little bit of a gasket leak. It is slowly dripping out fluid, so that's why I'm actually down here changing this out. It looks like the previous person just kind of smothered on some kind of adhesive, maybe a caulk, onto the edges there to kind of maintain it for a bit. So we're just gonna go ahead and replace the whole gasket and try to make it a little better retained. So before you do anything on this, before you drain it or before you start to loosen bolts, always make sure that you can get out the fill bolt, or that you have a fill bolt, because otherwise you're going to drain the fluid and you're not going to have a way to put it back in. So on ours, right back here is our fill plug, and if we just come back a little bit further here, you'll see that it is a box end. Don't actually use a ratchet or socket. You just take the open end and kind of put it into the square right there. If this will focus, yep, you can see it's just a square instead of a socket. So you just take your ratchet head and pop it in there to loosen it. So we're gonna do that first to make sure we can get this out and put the fluid back in later. Alright, so got our open end ratchet. Sometimes you can kind of grab an extension on it if you want. I'm just going to see if we can do it without that. And pop it in. If I can, get this thing to center in here a little bit better. Change the face on it. Yep. Stick it in there and try to be careful that you don't strip it out, but if you need a breaker bar, you do. I'm hoping in this case I don't, but we'll see. It's a little difficult with this one hand, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab a breaker bar so I can do this and hold the camera. Okay, so I just got the end of the breaker bar. I'm just gonna plug that in, make sure it's in there good. Just gonna easily try to turn this one out. It's a lot easier with the breaker bar, but if you don't have one, it's fine. Maybe grab a pipe to add onto your other wrench and give it a length, or maybe yours is just still loose enough to come out by itself. But for this one, I am gonna loosen it with this. So that's all I'm gonna do now. Is just loose, grab a shorter one, try to pop that in. Just like here's their cover, here's your tires. This is where I'm loosening it, is this plug right here. And I have a catch pan just in case it's overfilled, but I'm pretty sure it won't, because it's been leaking fluid the last few days. Just be prepared, because this is probably the worst smelling stuff in your car. So if you can see right here, sometimes the filler plug is also a magnet, so you want to clean that stuff off. and get that magnet fresh to grip any more shards that come off your gears when the car is running. So that's what happens is, yeah, it looks like we do still have some fluid in there. Basically these will kind of take the metal shards that are being grinded away slowly from your gears inside the differential, and it'll just kind of hold them out of the way to kind of reduce the amount of friction in there. So you want to make sure to get this cleaned off so it can take as much new metal as possible. So what I've done is I've gone around with my breaker bar and just kind of broken these a little bit, except for the top bolt, because my fuel tank is kind of in the way, so I'm gonna have to do that with the smaller one and maybe throw a pipe on the edge of it to get it to break a little easier. But what I'm gonna do first is start at this bottom bolt and work my way up across these so that the bottom is the first part that would open, and that would kind of maintain and manage the fluid coming out to come straight down into our drain pan. So we're just gonna go through that right now. Damn it. Alright, sorry about that, guys. Hopefully you're still able to see this as well. Kind of dropped the camera. I'm just kind of got this little tripod for my phone that I'm trying out. The thing's not too sturdy. Yeah, these things are just nasty threaded in through these, so kind of looks like the gasket did a pretty good job there of getting into the bolts so that none of the fluid came through there. But still gonna want to clean those up. So on this one, you know, pretty much every differential you're going to get a tag that kind of tells you what kind of gear settings you have. So if you're not sure if you have a limited slip or not, and you just don't want to open up the casing to find out, on these tags there's usually an L in a specific spot on it, so you can kind of go online and check if your vehicle has a limited slip sometimes, or if it never does. But if it does, then it should be able to say where in this tag it should have the L to say limited slip. So I'd have to look it up, but let's see if we can focus in right here. Come on, focus, focus, focus. Focus. Well, hopefully you guys can make this out. It's a 3L17. I don't know specifically if that's the limited slip spot for this tag, but I'm fairly certain that this is a limited slip differential unless somebody has changed it out. So, you know, just look for something like that on your tag and you'll know without having to open this up. But go online, Google it. Google has the answers for pretty much most of any problem these days. So it looks like we got 3 more left. And I'll probably fast forward through this through the magic of editing, so nobody's gonna hear or give a shit. They'll just, you know, click fast forward on the video probably. So, just a lonely guy talking to himself in his phone out of the car in his apartment complex, hoping nobody walks by and judges me, but if they do, it's fine. Alright, now all we have left is our top bolt up here. That's the only one holding it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, maybe put a little piping on it to crack it, make it a little easier since I can't get the breaker bar on. And I'm just going to loosen it, you know, maybe 1 or 2 turns, not take it off all the way, and then I'm going to break this to let the fluid out, but that bolt will still be holding this pan in. So we don't want to take this bolt out all the way, just loosen it so we can crack this and drain the fluid. Then once that's all drained out, we'll take that bolt out and pull the pan. That just kind of helps contain the mess. So let me go run and try to grab something to help crack this top bolt. Okay, so it turns out that the bolt that I couldn't crack was the one to the left of the top. Sorry about that, guys, but looks like I already started this one. So I'm just gonna loosen it right here a bit. Like I said, don't pull it all the way out, just get it started. Just a few turns. And then, see if you can just grab this by your hand. If not, then get a flathead screwdriver to start prying. Alright guys, I got a couple of screwdrivers, so let's see if I can kind of dual edge this and try to get a good clean break in. So put you in there. Maybe pry you. You can see it's a little bit. Kind of shift your pan with where it starts to leak out from. Just be careful not to scratch the mating surface. Just kind of dig it in. And just slowly work it in if you're still new to this, you know. If you've done this before, you probably don't need to watch this video, but you know, if you're still nervous, just slowly pop it. Otherwise, just let it hang. We got that top bolt up there holding it on, and we're just draining fluid out. Let that sit for a couple minutes. Maybe take this time to start cleaning your backside of the plate. Just do any other kind of prep work while you give this some time to drain, just like letting your oil drain when you do an engine oil change. Just give it some time to all get out before you really get ready to put all this stuff back in. Go do some prep work. Alright, I don't know why I bothered saying, you know, don't take the plate off, go do other stuff. This stuff's pretty much all drained out, so you only gotta wait like 30 seconds if you want to be safe. But other than that, you know, we're good. Let's just pop this thing off now and then go clean it, get it prepped for this new gasket. That's out of the way. Damn it, hitting the camera again. Sorry about that, guys. Hope you can still see. Just removing this, and that's all. So let's rearrange you guys here a little more centered. That is the inside of your differential if you have this vehicle, but most of them will look pretty much like this. But let me see, look at the other side. Now it looks like this is not a limited slip. Alright, so guess that tag, the tag up here that I had on that bolt, guess that L did not mean limited slip. So again, you know, just Google that if you're not entirely certain, or maybe it was a limited slip and somebody just replaced it and put the tag back on. You know, never know until you actually go ahead inside and look, but that tag is usually a pretty good indicator. Alright, so let's take the cover back inside and get that kind of cleaned and prepped. Okay, now that we got this cover kind of isolated over here, we can clean it off. So what you kind of want to do is just, not kind of, what you want to do is get all this old gunk off of this surface and just clean off this area, so that when you put the cover back on, you get as clean of a mating surface as you can, so that the gasket goes on smoothly everywhere and that there's no gaps that the fluids can leak through. So you want to make sure that this is as flat as possible. There's no gouges in the metal. So whenever you're taking this off, use a plastic scraper, not a metal one, excuse me, because that won't scratch the metal surface and it should be able to dig up this old gasket material. And if you want to, you can also throw some brake clean on, just clean the outside and inside of it. Just clean it up really good. Really important though to get this edge right on the inside and edges of the bolt holes too. Sometimes they have leftover material in the hole, so make sure to dig that out. Just clean it up really well and get it prepared to put back on. Sometimes if you don't have a plastic scraper, you can get a green Scotch pad, and is that what they're called, Scotch pads? Those little green like back of the sponges, and you can use those to kind of scrape against it with either brake clean or any kind of cleaner really that'll get it off, as long as it doesn't damage metal. So just take some time and be patient with this, because this is the most important thing. If you mess this up, you're just gonna have to do it all over again. So take your time and do a good job on this. Okay, so now that we have our cover really clean, smooth, no gouges in it from cleaning, it's ready to put on the new gasket. We're gonna do the same thing for the actual differential. So any of this old material here, you're gonna get the plastic scraper, put it away, or sorry, not put it away, clean it off, and do that all around the edges here too, until it's just as clean, because you really want a good mating surface on both sides. Before starting that, I recommend putting a bag or some of the blue cloth towels like this one that are kind of lint free, and stuff them in there so that you don't get any of the stuff coming into the differential when you're cleaning it out. So just take your time with that one too. I kind of got distracted, so it's a little dark outside now, but got the light, so I'll be working through it. Okay, now that we have our surface more clean, it's however you feel is good. Make sure you're comfortable and you think it'll hold the seal when you put the gasket on. Get ready to clean it off. So I'm going to take some brake clean and the rag, blue rag, and I'm going to spray onto the rag, then clean it off the surface, not spraying directly in. It's just, I actually don't know why. It's just the best practice. This brake clean stuff's supposed to dry up, but why risk it? So I'm just gonna spray it on and wipe down our surface. So what I'm also gonna do is pull these out now, because otherwise you can see it's getting the oil dripping already. So I'm just gonna have to clean it off all over again. So I guess we learned that this time is take them out beforehand so you just don't have any more oil additionally coming in. So spray it again and just work your way around. Try to get it as clean a surface as possible. Sorry for knocking into the camera, but again, reaching around you guys right now, it's probably not the best approach. And then do the same thing for the gasket cover, or sorry, for the differential cover. Just clean that out with some brake clean, and if you want to paint it, just anything. Now we're going to get ready to put on the gasket. I have found one online that I was able to get for this, so I'm not going to use any RTV or anything. I'm going to first put on this gasket sealant from Permatex. I don't know if you guys can see that. Basically, you just apply this to the surface and it kind of helps hold the gasket in place while you put the cover on and put the bolts through. You can do it without this, it's just more difficult, so I think this is really useful if you have paper gaskets. If you're doing it with RTV, then what you'll do is you'll take the cover and you'll apply a bead consistently around the whole thing. Remember, on the cover, not on this, but you'll apply it to the whole thing as continuous as you can around the insides, And if you want to, you can do a circle around. I don't recommend that, but most people just go inside the bolt holes. Wait about 15 minutes until it starts to get a little tacky. So it's not just a liquid that's just going to squirt out. You want to let it get a little bit solid before you put the cover on. Then when you put the cover on after those 15 minutes, just lightly hand tighten it. Let it sit for another 45 minutes so that it becomes more of a solid, and then compress it all the way and torque it down. So that's 3 steps if you're doing RTV. Just put the bead down continuously, wait 15 minutes, lightly apply the cover to the differential, just hand tighten the bolts into place, wait another 45 minutes or so, half hour, so that it gets more solid. And then third, compress it all the way to torque spec, so you're compressing that solid and forming a gasket. But for me, I got a paper one, so I'm just going to put this high tack on, put the gasket over it, and then put my cover on with the bolts and torque it down. Alright guys, it kind of changed my approach a bit, and direction said to put it directly on the gasket, so I did that. Now I'm going to place it as best I can for you guys to see. Try and line this up. With the bolt holes. I'm definitely going to have to clean this up. Next, pop this on. Just kind of get some of these started in here. And try to okay, looks like all the bolts are going through okay. I kind of have my doubts about whether or not this gasket's going to go down evenly, but we won't know unless we try. And if it doesn't work, I'll take it for the test drive, see that, pop it off, and we'll do an RTV one instead. But till then, we're just going to run it down. When you guys tighten these down, make sure you're kind of going like a crisscross pattern. So, if I start here, next one I want to do is going to be up here to go down. This one seems to be having issues, but just, do a crisscross back and forth. Make sure that you're kind of seating it evenly. So what I'm going to do is when I torque it down, I'm going to start going crisscross on these two, and then I'll do these diagonals and then top and bottom. But right now I'm just doing some light overall, turn ins. Okay guys, now that we have it all smooshed into place, we're going to go and do our final torques on the bolts. So the torque spec that I have for these is 32 foot-pounds. If you have a Mustang that's before a 98, I believe it's 22 foot-pounds. So up to 98, 22, after 32. It's just the spec that I found. Unfortunately, my torque wrench is a 1/2 inch drive, and all my sockets are 3/8, and I don't know where my adapter is. So I'm just gonna try to give it my best shot with this. If you're not comfortable, you know, just run to the store and get yourself an adapter for the torque wrench, or just, you know, get sockets that fit your torque wrench, better yet. But I'm just going to go ahead and do it by hand for my best feel, and after each one I'm just going to go ahead and mark the head on it so that I remember where I'm at, because like I said before, you torque it on a crisscross pattern so that, you know, you're always making sure to keep it as even as possible. So that's just a little trick that a lot of people and places like to use. Once you're done, you know, click it, mark it. So let's get this done, and I'll try to keep this as accurate as I can to 32 foot-pounds. And if you don't like this, well then, who cares? It's not your car. And guys, if you are torquing these without a torque wrench, you know, even if it's not 32 foot-pounds, just try to go for the same feel. I mean, just remember, it's just a gasket. You just want to keep everything even as you can. That's just the whole point. Doesn't have to be too specific. You know, as long as the gasket is even around, you're not going to crimple any certain area, then just go ahead and go for it. Just be consistent. I'm gonna say, guys, this is the first time I've used a paper gasket. Not really sure how I feel about it. You know, I wasn't too certain that it was gonna really fold all that evenly. So I'll keep it in the video if it doesn't work out, but if it does not, then oh, sorry about that. Got distracted and marked the wrong one. So remember, I still got to do this. Sorry about that, guys. Commenters call me out. Yeah, I know I messed up again. That one's marked. But yeah, if I have to redo this, then I'll just put a fast forward one in of me actually doing the RTV, or maybe I'll even do an extensive one of actually applying it. But we'll see if this one works out. Alright, and that should be all of them. Just go ahead and double check all your marks. Just kind of look, overview it, you know, make sure you didn't forget anything. But other than that, we should be set and ready to fill it back up with some oil. Alright guys, here comes the final part of actually filling it up. So, again, let's just take our filler cap out, filler plug. Make sure you clean off that magnet end. You know, clean out the threads if you want to. These ones look fine. I don't have any problems getting this put back in. Just double check it one last time. Keep it somewhere nearby so that you know you can grab it whenever this thing is full. Try to reposition your pan so that if oil does start to flow out of here a little early, you know, or whenever it's full, you're able to catch it. So I found out that I definitely do not have a limited slip differential on here. But if yours does and you have those little clutches on the sides, then you're going to want to have some friction modifier. Check your specific manual, but on most Ford Mustangs it pretty sure calls for 4 ounces, and Motorcraft sells, you know, a 4-ounce bottle just for that. So if you have a Ford, it should be easy for you to find. But also, even if you don't or do, you still need to get yourself the gear oil. So I'm going to be using this 80 weight 90. That's what gets called out for this specific vehicle. Again, check your manuals, check Google, wherever you usually go for that stuff. And it's pretty much just find a way to get it in here. You know, there's a little bit of room to just kind of tip it in if it can get through the exhaust on this one, but I'm not gonna bother with that. I'm just gonna do with this little pump I got from Harbor Freight. They're only like, I don't know, $5 for the pack, and you know, just clean them out in between uses, and you can use these for pretty much anything that you want to. There's a lot of uses for oil. Just make sure you clean it, but it's a really cheap way to transfer fluids. So, you know, if you're not sure which end is sucking or blowing, you know, just put your finger over the top of one and pump. So this one is my finger on, this one's sucking because I held my finger over it on it and it felt a vacuum. So this end goes into the oil from the container, and the other end is where it's going to be blown out, going into the differential. Now you can see maybe on the camera this one's a little dusty, so I'm going to take some cleaner. A little off camera here, I got some. Make sure it's clean before I put it into there on the outside. But you know, I cleaned this before or after the last job, but if it's been sitting around for a while, it's going to get dust and crap on it, so just going to feed that in a bit. And then just start pumping away. And then just wait till you start to see any fluid come out of here. So that's when you know it's filled, and then you just put your drain plug back in. So I'm just going to kind of take it slow, just letting the camera kind of take the better angle here. So it looks like we may already be full. Now before I go ahead and close this up, I'm going to go in there, look at it, or dip your finger in, make sure that you can actually feel that it's full and it's not just, you know, rebounding off of the gears, because this stuff does kind of spray out kind of quickly. I don't feel it, so it looks like it may have just been squirting out of the end there. So it definitely didn't seem like enough. Crap. Alright. Kind of sounds like I'm out of oil at the first run here. So I'm going to move on to my next canister. And then just take a second here to transition. Make sure that holds. I think I see a little oil coming out here. I'm going to give it a quick light tap, see if it's more coming. Yeah, I believe we may be done here. Let's go ahead and take one more finger test. No, we still got a little more room. We're close. I forgot what the actual count on this thing is supposed to hold. I think it's like a couple pints, but I don't know what that means in American. So I think it's a good thing I put this filler hole at the spot where it's supposed to be filled. Otherwise it'd be a total pain having to calculate or convert it every time from quarts to liters to that. Whichever container size you get, it's probably always going to be different for stuff like this. Okay, That looks pretty good. That looks pretty definitive to me. All right. Okay, guys, I apologize. I forgot to, show you guys me actually inserting this again, but I'm just going to point out that I filled it up till fluid started draining, and don't let all the fluid drain out of here. Just wait till it starts to get a little bit slower, because you are at a tilted angle right now with the rear of your car jacked up. So that fill hole is supposed to be for when your car is just a flat, but since it's slightly angled, it's going to tip out a little more. So you want to make sure you kind of backfill it a little bit extra from what the actual drain plug is saying while you're up. So, while there's still fluid draining out, put this in, but, try to gauge where it would be if it was level. But, again, just put the box into the wrench in afterwards and, screw it down. There's a torque spec for this. I think it's like 12 foot-pounds, but, I mean, it's just a fill plug. Just put it in there snug. It's not at the top. It's not going to have too much pressure, but, just make sure it's in there tight enough where it's not going to leak. And at the same time, review all around where your new gasket is and make sure that you don't have any leaks yet, because if you do, then you don't want to go drive it off and then find out later. So review that, and if it all looks good, we'll take it for a test drive and check back under, see if anything's leaking.